Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here. We got a great show lined up for you. While I was at the Red Pill Expo in Tulsa, I caught up with Alex Newman. We talked about the United Nations, globalism, and much more. You're not going to want to miss it. Buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness.
Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and I am sitting with the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Newman. He just got done opening up the G. Edward Griffin Red Pill Expo here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, number one, I don't think we've seen each other in person for at least a year, or did we see each other in North Carolina?
North Carolina, Reawaken America.
Reawaken America,
Right.
Exactly. Now, number one, I'm wondering what you're up to, but number two, I just gotta say, this guy is an animal. I literally saw him come in last night, probably about 9:30-ish, and he's not even staying 24 hours. He is getting on a plane at 1 in the afternoon. That is true dedication. First of all, let everybody know what your speech was on today, and then where you're headed and what you're gonna be doing.
Well, thank you, man. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you. So today I spoke on how they're basically using behavioral psychology, artificial intelligence, and what they call social emotional learning to turn our children into functionally circus animals or even biological robots. The conditioning that Pavlov used on the dogs has now been scientifically perfected to the point where they basically can program children to hold particular attitudes, values, beliefs, worldview, and even to behave in a particular way. They have become so good at this, and they brag about it, and the UN is demanding it. In fact, all the different governments of the world got together and agreed that they were going to do this. So that's what I was trying to expose, that your children are in great danger if you have them in a government school and even, unfortunately, some private schools. And so that's what I was doing here. And then in just about an hour, I'll be taking off to head for New Hampshire. Camp Constitution is going on up there, and I'll be teaching a bunch of young kids about climate change and what else? Education, some other things. So
When we're talking young kids, how young are we talking?
It's typically a mix. You'll have kids probably, the really young kids, they're with like special teachers, but I think I've got kids ranging from like 10 up through about 18, and then some adults come too.
And you've got children of your own. How old are they?
I've got 6 of them, and they'll all be there. My oldest is 15. My youngest will be 1 in 3 weeks.
Talk about putting in the work, everybody. 6 children. That is a bunch to juggle. So let's talk a little bit about the United Nations, because that's something that I focus on, basically because the UN, I would say, is the vehicle, if you will, for modern day globalism.
Absolutely.
It is the face, it is the mouthpiece,
Yep.
And they have a multitude of programs that are transnational, that supersede governments, but especially this idea of getting to the youth. And they love to use the term equity, and they are also very much on the global transgender/transhuman bandwagon. And people don't understand how intermixed those are, but at the same time, you can go to their own site, and they will go down the line and tell you that basically, you know, we're going to take over any of these nation states that aren't giving these transgender kids rights. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And then you see the transhuman aspect of it, where they're trying to build these global virtual societies based on, I would say, social engineering. You know, that social credit score that they would love to get into place in the real world, they're already trying to put into the digital world, and basically, I would say, acclimate the youth to that system. What are your thoughts on that?
That's exactly what's happening, Jason. It's so interesting. What you just said is 100% confirmed in UN documents going back decades. So let's start with what you said about how the education is the critical part of implementing all this. That's what they say. If you go back to Agenda 21, which was approved in 1992, signed on behalf of the United States by George H.W. New World Order Bush, it says right there in Chapter 36, education is indispensable to changing people's attitudes to get them ready for this. It says education is critical for giving children the right attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors for the sustainable system they're building. They say education is they use a whole bunch of these words: critical, indispensable, essential, and they say it's got to include spiritual education. It's got to be integrated into all of the disciplines. And so that was 1992. That's what, over 30 years ago now.
33 years ago.
Exactly. Right. You got a good math education. Right? But so they're very open about this now. And then you look more recently, 2019, UNESCO brought together governments in Beijing, and they came up with the Beijing Consensus Declaration on Artificial Intelligence and Education. And they say right there, we're going to harness the power of AI. We're going to get every last slave connected to the AI internet system so that we can change their attitudes, values, beliefs, and opinions to be consistent with what we're looking for. They say the same thing in the 2030 agenda, ratified in 2015. They're openly telling you they're going to brainwash your kids to make them into global citizens, environmentalists, radical feminists, you name your ism, they want your kids to believe in it. And then the second part you mentioned about how some of these mechanisms are already baked into the online world. I mean, it's exactly, and I tried to emphasize that. I don't know that I did it very well in my talk, but the UN calls this lifelong learning. So the same mechanisms, the same operant conditioning, the same behavioral psychology that goes into manipulating and shaping these kids is being used on adults, like your algorithms on your social media, right? People very quickly learn what the algorithm rewards and what the algorithm penalizes. And so like people with like big YouTube shows, they've mastered the art of doing what YouTube wants you to do in your show. And if you're not willing to do that, you're going to get demoted, you're not going to get promoted, et cetera, et cetera. But if you do what they want, if you talk about the issues that they want talked about, hey, the algorithm will reward you and you'll get these benefits. So we're watching all of these systems.
And it's everything, by the way. It's not just YouTube.
Oh, no,
you look at X, the supposed free speech platform, and literally just within the last 48 hours, somebody, basically I've been chastised by some of the quote-unquote conspiracy community because I believe they actually tried to shoot Trump and it wasn't a staged ordeal.
I believe that too.
Well, of course, because there's no forensic evidence to suggest otherwise.
Right.
And, this individual had this very long post, and it wasn't too hostile or anything like that. We'd gone back and forth. They refused to let me reply. You can go check it because they wanted to create a safe environment. So now somebody that follows me gives a long diatribe I'm not even allowed to respond to on the free speech platform that I pay for.
Right.
And listen, I don't pay for it because I want the blue check mark. I pay for it because I can't stream on the platform unless I pay for it.
Yep.
So, we're in this weird world where they got us into social media first as a quote-unquote free social thing, then a way that anybody could make money if they were popular enough or put out something that people had. So they would pay you, to now totally being inverted, where you've got to pay to play, and if you want to make money on these things, you've got to be part of that algorithm that you talked about, or you will be demonetized, or worse yet, just taken off altogether.
Yep, and that's exactly. And what you're saying is this is shaping the way people think. It's shaping your ability to put out information. It's shaping your ability to acquire information, and it's shaping people's thought processes, and it's shaping their behaviors. People don't realize how insidious this is, and that's one of my big concerns with so many of the shows now, that they're doing what the social media overlords want them to do. And in some cases, they want to fuel division. I mean, if you want to say crazy, inflammatory, right-wing...
Oh, they love that.
Exactly.
No, listen, that's the craziest thing. It's
yeah.
not like it's one side or the other. Mm-hmm. It's the narratives that they allow to conflict with one another.
Yes, exactly.
And they don't like it when you don't play team baseball and you show your work.
Right.
That's the big deal. You dare to show your work, and then all of a sudden, you're the bad guy. I will say this, on YouTube, out of nowhere, in the last 3 months, I maxed out at about 73,000 subs, right? And I did that in a 2-year period from 5,000 to 73,000. Right before the COVID 1984 nightmare hit, I started to see a decline. Now, what ends up happening is they take my channel 5 times and I get fully demonetized, but I fight them on Twitter before X to get it back every time.
And it works?
I shamed them with my audience. So eventually Team YouTube would give me my channel back, not monetize it. Now, over that 5-year period of 2019 to say today, 5.5, I declined down to 70,000 and change.
Wow.
So it was impossible for me to grow, despite the fact that I had the same numbers, I had 90+%, thumbs up, all those things that they tell you is great for the algorithm. Yep. I had a watch time. an average watch time of videos of over 15 minutes on videos that are 50 minutes long. And that's unheard of, right? That doesn't happen. They're supposed to encourage that. Now, out of nowhere, in the last 3 months, they gave James Corbett his channel back.
Wow.
I know. And then they gave Dan Dick's Press for Truth back. And in these last 3 months, I've now taken it back to almost 72,000 subscribers. I am now growing. I'm still not able to be demonetized for one sentence, and the sentence is that my my content is harmful.
That's what they say, or that's what you...
Oh no, it's what? Have you not seen it? Let's see if we can bring it right up here.
That's funny. I have a hypothesis about why they're doing that, because they deleted a bunch of my channels and we got some of them back.
Sure.
Too. I think what they're doing is they're realizing that they've allowed space for a competitor here, and now some other up-and-coming services like Rumble are gaining ground on them, and they're losing market share. So they're like, well, quick, give everybody back their ads so we can get them back into our algorithm trap.
Well, the other funny thing about that is that, you're talking about the algorithm trap, and that is something I think that people need to be extremely aware of. But even on Rumble, right?
Yep.
I pay for that.
Yep.
At least I'm able to get my money back on the monetization. So I do the $25 a month program. So if I want to have a second channel, okay, you've got to do the $10 a month again to stream, just like anything else.
Yep.
But again, I want the extra. I've been stuck at about 21,000 subs there, and which I got within the first year. I think I got 20. I've made 1,000 in the last 2 or 3 years.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and
we
that,
haven't made much on there either.
And let me say this, and that's with, in the very beginning, access to one of their guys, Siraj, who was like a big part of it. He would put my stuff on the front channel in the beginning. And look, I never followed up on it. It's not like they dissed me, but this is a Peter Thiel, Dan Bongino investment deal.
Yep.
Okay, so you have to be extremely aware about all those things, because look what's on the front. And I'm not here to attack a Tim Pool or a Kim Iverson, but they're pretty milquetoast compared to an Alex Newman or a Jason Bermas. Like, for instance, you talked about this idea of a collective hive mindset, right? Well, you talked about kind of the, I would say, the ethereal software of pattern and mind control through repetition, et cetera, et cetera. But then you've got the Muskernuts, literally 2 weeks ago, with their latest Neuralink presentation. I'm not sure if you've seen it yet.
No, I haven't. But
it's a watch-along.
Neuralink like crazy.
I've only done a watch-along with the first 2 parts of an hour-long thing, but they have now shown you their 2 products, and they are very open. Although they're showing you now 6 different individuals playing Mario Kart together just with their chips,
Whoa.
2 of which have severe ALS and 1 is totally nonverbal. The 2 programs that they're talking about are telepathy is their first product. So they're telling you that they want that hive mind. And then blind sight is their second. So they're actually going into the arena, which has been an arena which I actually reported on in Invisible Empire, of making the blind see again or for the first time through these chips, through hardware and software.
Yep.
But as you watch the presentation, they tell you that this is going to be for a commercial use, and it is going to, this is the starting point. I don't beleaguer these people in chairs that want this technology so that they can communicate with others. I understand that part of it. But that is the Trojan horse to get this into the door and normalize a system where you are hardwired.
Dude, I got to tell you this, because I ended my talk going to Alice Bailey. So I know you know Alice Bailey. Yes. She was the founder of the Lucifer Publishing Company. So the UN has what they call the World Core Curriculum.
Yes.
And the guy who wrote it, the Assistant Secretary General of the UN, Robert Mueller, he said it should be taught to every child in every school.
Is it Robert Mueller or is it somebody different?
Robert Mueller is the guy who wrote it.
But it's not the Robert Mueller from the FBI.
No, not
okay,
totally
yes,
different.
Yes.
So this guy was way into the occult, total wackadoodle. And he says in the foreword to the teacher's manual of the World Curriculum, which I have, that it is based on the teachings of Alice Bailey and the Tibetan teacher Jwal Khul, which was a spiritual entity Alice Bailey claimed to be channeling. She called him an ascended master. And in this book, I have a copy of the book at home. Well, it's called Education in the New Age. She says the end objective is not just a world federation, a world government, but a world brain. And she says we're going to get this by fusing neo-scholasticism and Marxism using the methods advocated by John Dewey, who was the founding father of the public school system in the United States. So you have all of it converging. And notice Alice Bailey was writing like almost 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And she's talking about a world brain. Now, she didn't know this in her own power. She was channeling what I consider to be a demon. She thought it was an ascended master that was giving her secret insight. But isn't it amazing? This lady, Alice Bailey, who informed the world education standards they want for every child in the world, said the end objective was to get a world brain where all minds were connected, individual consciousness was subsumed into the collective, and we all became this monstrosity.
Yeah, and let's talk about that quote-unquote global brain really quickly. One of the things that I've highlighted is the former chief scientist of NASA, Dennis Bushnell. Now, Bushnell not only has written white papers on transhumanism, talked about the global hive brain, and really the fact that we're going to become the machines, they're going to become us, and we're going to merge. When he talks about that global brain, he, number one, talks about it being Google.
Yep.
Okay, and if people don't know the history of Google, that is literally a DARPA NASA operation that was funded by In-Q-Tel.
Yeah.
And listen, you can see the letter from Sergey Brin and Larry Page thanking DARPA and NASA because they won the National Library Initiative in the late 90s after DARPA gave them their initial search engine. And of course, this was an initiative to try to get all of the printed works digitized and online. So Bushnell's very cavalier. He says, we're going to take all that information from Google. We're going to read all the emails. They're going to read all the emails. Yeah. That means all the text messages. That means all global communications, and feed it into this system. Now, we've already gotten what I would consider a sour taste of the output. And the output is artificial intelligence models that have massive guardrails and narrative control. And when you challenge them on those guardrails, they try to placate to you and, you're so smart. Right. And it ends up being a reflection of what you're willing to accept from these models. I would love to get your take on modern day AI, of course, Google being a part of that, but then the quote unquote competing AIs. After all, the new Grok's coming out and we should all trust that.
Right, even Elon Musk said it was terrifying, which is kind of terrifying. But yeah, the AI and this effort to bring humanity all together under this one world system with a one world brain is, I think, one of the most important things happening in the world right now. And not one in a million people has even thought about it, much less developed any kind of understanding of where this is all going. Folks, when you read the things that these people involved in the occult have been talking about. They're talking about the merger of man and technology, man and machine, and AI, of course, is going to facilitate that. And to just kind of fast forward to the end destination, they've already told us what they're up to. If you look at Ray Kurzweil, chief of engineering at Google, if you look at Yuval Noah Harari, one of the chief ideologists for these lunatics at the World Economic Forum, he actually summarized it succinctly. We're evolving into Homo Deus. We're going to become man-God or God-man, which is literally, Jason, literally the oldest lie in the book. It's what Satan said in Genesis chapter 3.
And look, I'm not even, he'll tell you, I don't love the religion stuff. But when you take the former religion stuff out, what are they saying? They're saying they're going to biologically live forever.
Yes,
et cetera.
You'll live forever and you'll become God. That's literally what Satan promised Adam and Eve in the garden. Said, "Ye shall be as gods, knowing good from evil." And then when they said, "No," God said, "If we eat this, we're going to die." Satan says, "Did God really say you won't surely die?" In other words, immortality and godhood. You get to define right and wrong for yourself. That's what these people are up to. And I think a lot of them think they're doing good. I mean, even Alice Bailey, she saw Lucifer. If you read into her theology, she got a lot of it from Helena Blavatsky.
Sure.
They thought that Lucifer was the good guy.
Yeah.
They thought that
the
Lucifer,
being of light, the angel of light.
He liberated Adam and Eve from this oppressive deity.
Gave
Yahweh,
them the information,
that God
the
was
apple
keeping
of
from
knowledge.
them.
Yes.
And so these people all think that they're doing something amazing. What they don't realize is this is a plot from the pit of hell, and the consequences are going to be worse than anything humanity can begin to imagine. I mean, it'll make Nazi Germany, Soviet Union, Communist China look like child's play by comparison if these wackadoodles succeed.
So the other thing that I think is really important, you just talked about this immortality quest. It's an old quest.
Oh, yeah.
So you could go to things like the Tree of Life, the search for that. You could get to the Fountain of Youth.
Yep.
Right?
I'm from there in Florida. That's where all the Spanish explorers were looking for it.
And I forget that what is it, the Darren Aronofsky movie, all about that tree of life, and it keeps going back to that era of the conquistadors and into this modern day era where this guy has lost his girlfriend to cancer, and now he's trying to, cure cancer, and basically, again, this quest to live forever. It is a moot quest.
Right.
We are. I'm telling everybody right now.
Yes, it is.
We are flesh and blood.
Yep.
We are in base reality. We're not in a multiverse.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and then it's not a simulation.
Right.
And we're constantly bombarded with these ideas, mostly from mainstream science, actually, through science fiction, to be acclimated to that belief system. I believe to disarm us not only from our spiritual reality, but our biological reality as well. And that's really what this trans movement is. And just to speak to the technology that's already available in the brain-computer interface field, what they don't tell you is, these chips, once they hardline them in there, you still have to train them.
Yeah.
They don't just work. And guess what? Over a dozen years ago, there were wearables that did much of the same thing that you could take off at any time and train them in the same manner. But guess what? They're not concerned about the wearables. No, they're not pushing the wearables at all, which would have their own concerns, but you can take them off.
Man, Jason, if you go back to the 1960s and 70s, there was a guy at Yale, Professor Delgado, who was wiring the brains of bulls and monkeys with these systems and was able to remote control them. So we're getting into stuff that I know a lot of people are going to be like, that's weird, are these guys crazy? These are technologies that are real. They've been around for a long time. They are rapidly being improved.
Just because you said that,
is at stake.
Yeah, I covered this. So in the 1980s, it was either ABC or CBS did an hour-long special on MK Ultra, and I did a watch-along in 5 parts with that. And they not only show you Delgado, but one of the bulls that he did put those electrodes into. And they even go to 2 different individuals where they did these pattern deprogramming things on. And you would have thought, again, that they were crazy. But then all of a sudden, they actually won in court and are being interviewed about these horrors. We're talking about 50 years ago now. And, Musk actually did admit in that presentation that they have been putting brain chips in for decades. And Bushnell in 2018 actually admitted that they had already put 200,000, not 10, not 20, not 100, not the 6 people you see with these disabilities. 200,000 people with these BCI interfaces, obviously of varying degrees. I would love to get your thoughts on where you think the technology is in the black world right now, because there are a lot of over-promises, right? And under-deliveries. And how quickly you think that this is going to accelerate into the commercial arena. And then I'll let you go because I know that you're a busy man and got to catch a flight.
I appreciate it, Jason. So I think what we see right now that's publicly talked about, that's publicly available, is a fraction of what these people actually have. And when you really start digging into what we already know about, for example, the creation of human-animal hybrids.
Chimeras.
They're talking about this in the news now, that they're creating humanized mice. They're putting human DNA into mouse DNA. They're putting mouse DNA into human DNA. They're putting human DNA into pig DNA.
And by the way, mice share 94% of our genetics, and that's why they're often experimented on. And then when you even look at modern-day de-aging that has been commercialized, the NAD+, the resveratrol, etc., those were mice studies that started literally almost 2 decades ago where they were de-aging those mice. So now they're just openly crossing the genetics as it's no big deal.
And so I suspect in underground laboratories in China, somewhere in the United States, and other places, they have created freakish beings that are part human, part other organism, part technology. And they're trying to figure out now, how do we make these beings live forever? How do we give them superpowers that no military will be able to deal with them? And so I think the stuff that they are working on, even the stuff that's publicly known about would blow the minds of the vast majority of humanity. They couldn't even conceive that these things are happening, even though they're publicly acknowledged. So the stuff that's happening underground that we are not allowed to know about is probably so terrifying and so outrageous that people would not be able to handle it. They would not be able to comprehend it. So
That's a sad state of affairs, but again, we show our work here, and unfortunately, a lot of this is happening. Alex, let everybody know where they can check out your stuff and support your work, brother.
Oh, I appreciate it so much. Thank you, Jason. So my website is libertysentinel.org. People can sign up for our free newsletter there. I'm senior editor at the New American Magazine. I serve as a senior fellow at Classical Conversations, and then X is unfortunately the platform that I've been most using just because there's a little more free speech than other places. It's AlexNewman_JOU, and I really appreciate you.
Hey,
thank you for
love
all you do.
And
love you too, man. Thank you.
Safe travels.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Folks, that was another great interview with Alex Newman. I do want to encourage you to please consider donating to the cause. $5, $10, $15. It does mean the world to me. Big donors need you now more than ever. The links are down below. Please share the channels. Check out the documentaries. Share them as well. And remember, it is not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. I absolutely love you guys, and we will see you on the flip side.